Are we on, Joe?
There we are.
There
We're
we are.
on.
There we go. I wasn't sure because you had the little clock covered up there for a few
I
seconds.
know. Joe Cioffi here with the wonderful Joe Rao, who is from the Valley of Lower Hudson.
And Jolton Joe Cioffi, who is the master of weather both in New Jersey and also on the island of Long.
Correct.
To which he is an inhabitant, in fact.
Yes, I do. Somewhere.
Yeah.
And this is FiOS 1 News. Good evening, everybody. As we watched the cold front move through with the remnants of Florence go by, I happen to have the blessing and the distinct honor and privilege of driving through all of it. Both driving into it, coming westbound on Long Island, and then driving back eastbound on I-95. It was fun, especially after I discovered I had been literally driving on the shoulder of I-95 for a good 2 miles, and I was wondering, what is that, grinding noise, when you go over the off too far, you got rumble strips. And I just was totally unfocused, I guess, because with all the rain coming down, and I suddenly realized, I looked, from what I could see, which wasn't very far, I was like, oh, okay, I'm on the shoulder. Maybe I need to pull over to the left. So, that was a little, afterward, I was a little frightening because, you just, you're trying to focus, you sort of get mesmerized by everything that's going on, and easily distracted. So, anyhow, I'm here in one piece.
And we didn't really, in the lower Hudson Valley, from the samplings of rainfall reports, we ranged anywhere from like 1/4 of an inch to maybe about 1.2 inches. So it was not really a tremendous amount. And I don't even recall seeing any advisories or flood advisories or whatever that went up. So it came, it arrived, it went, and now it's gone. And that's it for flood. First time, I think, in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
That we'll not have to mention that name again?
Well, then again, maybe not. Maybe, why don't we look? Did you happen to look closely at what's going on in the long range?
I didn't. I didn't pay too much.
Well, how much did you look out east? Did you look out in the ocean? That wet thing that's that way.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Did you look all the way out?
No, not that far. Well, I'm talking about Florence. I'm not talking about
Yeah, I'm talking about Florence too.
Are you telling me that she's going to come wavering?
Well, you know what? Why don't we look?
The one night I don't bother because I'm just so tired.
And and he knows. I usually at some point in the night I'll say, "Hey Joe, take a look at the this or that," and he'll look, and then he'll raise his eyebrow, and I'll see go up, and he'll have that look like, no,
like Mr. Spock on Star
Trek. Do we really have to go through this? But let me set this up for you, because I had a few people, a number of people were asking me about this. Okay, I'm in the wrong spot here. Give me 1 second. It's been that kind of a day. All right, where'd the window go? Oh, I know why. Let's try this. Nope, that didn't work. There it is. Now I can bring it up to the top. Okay, so maps courtesy, of course, of Levi Cowan at Tropical Tidbits. We don't want to forget to acknowledge him and his generosity for letting us use his maps, and everybody knows he's got a great website. If you haven't gone to it, go to it. Okay, so why don't we bring up Joseph, and we go to look at the Atlantic. And I won't cheat, so we'll start at the beginning.
Start at the very beginning.
Yes.
Yes.
It's always best to start at the beginning. Follow the yellow brick road.
Right.
All right, so there's your front that moves offshore, and there's a wave that's going to develop. Now, see, this is where I get a little confused. I don't know if the remnant low of Florence actually is the low that is off Cape Cod now and going to Nova Scotia, or is it the if you look at the upper air feature, the swirl was more down in Virginia and southern Pennsylvania, even though the rain was with the front. Right. Okay, so but let's assume that remnant swirl coming off the Virginia coast is Florence, and that wave that goes out to the north will eventually kind of gets lost. But watch what happens here. So it moves southeast and east. Now, a piece breaks off and it's going to race toward Ireland to make a big storm there in Ireland and the UK on Sunday.
Should be gotta.
There's Florence. That's, I guess, is Florence. And at this point, I'm assuming by the structure here that this is a hurricane again. And then it drops southward, and then it nudges east, and then it goes further south, and then it goes west, and then it gets swept up into Nova Scotia by the end of the, by 2 weeks from now, which of course, in reality, by the time we're done adjusting all this, that track will probably wind up being in the Gulf of Mexico heading to Texas. Just kidding, okay? Just kidding. If it does happen, it'll be just the fact alone that if it reforms and winds up sitting out in the Atlantic for a number of days, just on principle, it just needs to go away.
Yes, obviously. It'd be funny if it just orbited like a planet out over the ocean,
Well, here's the thing, Joe. I looked at this closely, and we're back to all these puzzle pieces. A very active northern jet across Canada. We talked yesterday about how cold it's going to be up in Canada for the next couple of weeks with below average temperatures. We've got this ridge in the east that's not that strong. It sort of flexes and then comes back down. But that northern jet is pretty active. And it becomes a matter of any of these troughs. Does it pick it up? Does it not pick it up? The European picks it up and then drops it in the Azores, and then drops it back southwestward. Sort of has a different view of things. So I guess what we're going to look for, you're going to have all these chess pieces around again in the northern jet with short waves running around. Does it get picked up? Does it not? Do the ridge bills on either side next week?
The old squeeze play.
Well, does it get trapped or doesn't it? Look, it misses this trough, which I find difficult to believe it's going to miss that. But it misses it, and then what do you have? You're back to that cradle thing again, where it just basically gets cradled underneath this upper high. And in the meantime, we've got the jet stream dropping from Canada gently southward, so that in the longer range, and even the European has this to a large degree, it would suggest that we would see some cooler intrusions of air as we get into the month of October.
And last fall and winter, wasn't Canada atypically cold early in the season, as we're seeing right now?
It was, but it's a little different because we had, I think, last year, if I remember correctly, we had a ridge in the east for well into the month of October. Mm-hmm. And remember, last year, all the tropical systems were going, had a big westerly component of motion for a long period of time. So, there was ridging dominating off the south, along or just in or just off the southeast coast for well into the month of October for us. And then it was if somebody flipped the switch at the latter part of November when we went into the icebox for December. It looks like, for those of you who like early fall weather, well, maybe this year it'll be different than the last two because both models seem to want to eventually get the ridge back out in the west and bring some troughing here into the east. And, that for the beginning of October, that's pretty chilly if it's right. I don't know. We've seen already a few times, more than a few times now, where these cold fronts that come through that look really robust in the long range wind up being not very, very much robust with cooler air behind it. Really don't. They wind up not being that much when we get to reality. But this looks like a pretty, inflated type of pattern here, if this is correct.
I remember early October 1972, we had snow flurries. I remember going to school. It was, I think, the 9th of October. Snow flurries, 1972, and you figure, well, there's a certain sign that this is going to be a really rough winter. And that was the winter where New York picked up, 3 inches of snow for the entire season?
That's the record. That still is the record for the least snowiest winter. Yeah, so, there's no real connection one way or the other with respect to that. I know the snow lovers are going to like this from late today. And we don't believe this, so let's not get too worked up. Okay? But it is a sign of things to come. Hey, Rocky, Watch me pull the
Little
lake.
rabbit.
Watch me pull the lake effect snow out of my hat. Of course,
dear.
this is I guess Florence reborn is a 939 low over Nova Scotia. We know that's not going to happen, folks. You know, it's just bizarre how the model does this. You know,
Look at that. Look at
please.
that.
Yeah,
Well, maybe that isn't because you're making the assumption that wave off the Mid-Atlantic coast is a Florence remnant.
Yeah, so I don't know which one is it. If is it the one that
We'll wait for the hurricane.
Yeah, they'll figure it out.
They'll figure it all out, and they'll point.
Right.
And would that be? Well, it's post-tropical cyclone Florence now.
Right.
An extratropical storm. So can it be
can it
reborn?
unpost?
Can it be reborn? Become a because where it's headed.
Well, sure. If it becomes if it acquires tropical characteristics and the ocean water where it's headed is warm enough.
Yeah, there have been a few storms like that. The crazy storms that have been pronounced practically dead that have somehow managed to come back.
I think Bill Goodman, I spoke to him earlier, he said Hurricane Ivan did that back in 2004, where it went out and you thought it was gone and it reformed and came back. I have to go back and look.
And there was one in the early 80s, Dennis, which was down over the southeastern United States for a while, then it died out, and then it came back or whatever. And eventually it flew past the Jersey Shore and I think did some damage to the boardwalk at Atlantic City. So,
all right, well, at least going forward, there's really hopefully not too much. It doesn't look like much happening here. It looks reasonable the next couple of days. Even Friday, no worse than partly sunny. Got a cold front that comes through Friday night. Doesn't look to have much with it. Then another one of these high spills in. I think Saturday may wind up being a little better of the 2 weekend days because I'm kind of concerned about the onshore flow and clouds for Sunday. And then we have to wait till a week from today, as a week from tomorrow, as the next cold front begins its approach, and another cold front approaches, and that goes through, and then you get a little shot of dry air, and then another front goes through, and then Florence comes back in the picture, and then it starts snowing, and school closings, and all the rest of it.
it's gonna be a wild and woolly next couple of weeks if this all pans out.
Yeah,
you take all of this as at face value.
The way I kind of looked at it, Joe, it's just, to me, it was, when I looked at everything like this afternoon, it struck me as a very interesting puzzle with all these different short waves running around in that very active northern jet. So who knows? There might be some surprises yet to come. I also think, by the way, I mentioned this on my YouTube show tonight and this morning on my video that I did for my Patreon members, that I kind of think that the Caribbean, or maybe even up into the Northwest Caribbean, somewhere in there, perhaps toward the end of the month, that something may come out of there because pressures are going to be on the low side.
Right.
And I think, as you get to the time of year now where climatology says you shift tropical storm development further west, it would make sense. But the upper air and what I was looking at with a few other things. Oh, and by the way, let me just show you this because I thought this was interesting. Since we've been so Florence focused, I noticed this today when I pulled up the wide Atlantic satellite loop. I think folks would be interested in seeing that.
And this is the new GOES 16, which really is head and shoulders above every other.
But we got the, if you look at the contrast there when we're on the visible side, that's Saharan dust that's covers the tropical Atlantic now, north of all those clouds, but there's dust. You see it comes off the African coast and is pushing northwestward. There's this big upper low that's north and east of Puerto Rico that's kind of pulling it up in that direction. And you actually see the dust migrate, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it looks like the tropics are very active here when you look at all the convection in the intertropical convergence zone. And by the way, the other thing is, I did notice that both the European and the GFS form something like a really, it would look like almost smaller than Beryl, but they actually form a really, really small system east of Venezuela somewhere late this week. like Thursday, Friday. Some maybe out of these clouds that are down in the tropical Atlantic, but. That dust was, I thought, a pretty interesting phenomenon.
It almost looks like, if it was a shade darker, it would almost look like a new continent.
Yes,
the ocean. Or
exactly. That's the beauty of this GOES thing.
Yeah. So
right, let's go to the board. I saw that Janet Forbes Dunn said she had about it, and then most of New Jersey got about 1 or 2 inches. Most of Long Island, some places got an inch, inch and a half, maybe a little bit more.
Right.
Let's see. Edward Richardson, thank you for joining my YouTube channel. I really appreciate it. Now you need to go join Patreon. I'm everywhere. But thanks for being there.
The new king of all media, Joe Cioffi.
I try. Cynthia Guignautis wants the rain to stop. Okay, in which state, Cynthia? Indiana or Pennsylvania? Because I'm not sure which one you're in right now. So let me know. We'll try to stop them in both, if need be. John Sears, you've had a long day. Go to sleep, for Christ's sake. Rocco Fridella wants to know, we're looking forward to cool air coming in the next few days. Well, it's a little better than what we've had.
Right. And by the way, from what I looked at this afternoon, Joe, the dew point at Westchester Airport tomorrow is still right around 60, which, is on the border of quote, muggy day. So, but the thing is that we've been sitting in low to mid 70 dew points.
One more day of 70 dew points. When I left my house this morning, and it was awful. It's just awful.
But I mean, like tomorrow will be relatively much better than, even though by the usual standards it's still somewhat muggy. We will finally push that dew point into the 50s, I think, on Thursday, along with cooler temperatures in the mid and low 70s.
Camilla Pickney Price, blessings to both of us. Thank you very much for the kind words. Daniel, I got the pictures. I posted them up on the page. Daniel's flooding in Western Virginia in the Blue Ridge Mountains was impressive. It didn't take 30 inches to cause the flooding, almost what looked like almost the same flooding there with respect to the rise in the rivers that he saw. He says there's so much water in the ground, it's so wet, it's all bubbling up like a swamp.
I can't even imagine what people in the Carolinas might think or do if indeed what we're looking at and what we think is Florence makes that big winding turn and actually makes landfall again right along.
Right. Well, we don't even want to go down that road.
Yeah, but
and not that we even should. I mean, we just it's just funny how the models work and when they key on one thing in one run and then they come up with something totally different in another. I just thought it was kind of odd that it did this late this afternoon. By the way, just take today's rain and any of you that got about an inch or 2 inches, just take today's rain and multiply it by 15 or 30, and that's pretty much what fell in North Carolina over 4 days. So it basically rained as hard as it did nonstop for 4 days. I don't know how you deal with that. And sadly, the death toll is at 32 and still rising. So a lot of rain in Oyster Bay. Well, Rocco, let's be careful. This was one run, okay? So let's not, it's another one of these deals where this run, the puzzle pieces kind of fit the way they did. The gears all came together to show this sort of really weird track. I guarantee you when we see the next run, it'll probably be different. Flooding of Cape Fear River, something I've never seen before, says Gwyneth Williams. Yeah, not expected to crest until Saturday. Isn't it like 20 feet above where I saw some shots from the Cape Fear River, Joe, where there was a pole, a telephone pole with a street light on it, and the water was just inches beneath the street light. It was that high. Wow. That's insane. I think that was a good, 20, 25 feet up from where it was supposed to be.
You think about some of the people in Wilmington who might be stranded in their home, or maybe on the second floor of their home. They're still waiting for the waters to recede, and that may not be for a number of days to come.
Mm-hmm. Robert Matthew Policasto doing good. I saw you had Angry Ben with you today. That was great. I really enjoyed it. Check out Angry Ben's weather page, by the way. Angry Ben's Angry Weather, and check out his live from earlier today. I hope you enjoyed it. It looked like you did. It looked like you had a great time. If it did stall, Jason Schaefer, I'm sorry, if what stalled, what would be its indirect effects on us? Are you talking about if I'll tell you what. Hold that question for a couple of more days, and when we get to Friday, if we're still seeing the same thing, then we'll come back to it. Because I'm of the opinion that the odds strongly favor, even if it does fire up again, it's staying out to sea. Because I have just ruled it will stay out.
What is Jimmy's other one? He
likes the warm though.
Oh, he likes the warm.
No, not warm is one thing. It's just been so soupy, humid. I can't stand it. Probably the most humid summer I could remember.
Yeah, it's been hard.
Chiefs playing great, and you're a Dolphin fan. Oh, he's talking to Keith. They're talking football while we're talking weather, which works for me. Jason Kaplan, that thunderstorm flooded out parts of Newark today. The water was up above the car tires in some places. Let's see. That Ethan Kerr is right. By tomorrow morning, the conspiracy theorists will be going nuts over the fictional Category 4 Florence blizzard in Canada.
Well,
he's right.
Well, it's rather unusual, but back in darn it, I used to be able to pull these years right off the top of my head. I know. But there was one particular situation in Nova Scotia where they had a very bad hurricane. It was Hurricane Juan, and that same year in the wintertime they had like blizzard conditions, and they referred to it as White Juan. But I mean, it wasn't the same system, but it was. But I don't know. We're playing highly hypotheticals right now.
Yeah. I just thought it was, like I said, for me it was just funny to see. Ali Fadil, I think an October snowfall around New York City area is a jinx anyway. They seem to happen in strong El Nino years where we get these cold shots in October and we see snow in the rare times that we've seen it. I haven't gone. I have to go back and look and see on the October years if they all match up with El Nino years. But I know the last couple of them that's been the case.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what if 2011, because 2011 we had it
in October.
We had Irene, and then in October, end of October, October 29th, if you would like to know the exact date, in front of my house, 14 inches of heavy wet snow, and a number of tree limbs and branches that were broken or snapped off. And even New York, I think, had a touch of snow then. That's rather late. I mean, like almost in November. The earliest sighting of snow, I think, in New York was in that year 1972. It was on the 9th of October. Just some flurries, but still.
Well, we're almost in October. I really let it wait till December. I want a break. Okay, we're coming up on 9:50. You got anything to add tonight?
No. You gave me a headache now, pointing out that thing with the. I just concentrated today basically on today and for the next several days coming up for the Hudson Valley, and I didn't even bother to look, or to see. I don't go looking for trouble like you, for example.
Well, I wasn't even. It wasn't until about the fifth or sixth person that mentioned it to me, because I really didn't look very hard. But when the fifth or sixth person mentioned it to me today, I was like, all right, you know what? Let me look. And then I looked back at a couple of runs and to see how the other runs handled it, and every run's been different. The European was different from the GFS. The European hung it out further east. The Canadian just basically, for some reason, in the next 10 days, decides to spin everything and everyone that's out there. So who knows what that means? Like I said, at this point, let's just let it go.
Why don't we just go now?
Yeah, time to go. All right, so Joe and I will be back tomorrow night, the same bat time for the Joe and Joe Weather Show, roughly at about 9:15. For those of you who are interested, you can check out some of the other videos that I did today, and some of them were most exciting. Where are you? Hold on. Okay.
I'm in Rybrook, New York right now.
Yeah, I understand. But you can check out my my Patreon page. I got website posts up there from my website, and also videos from that I cut on YouTube, and also some videos that I'm doing just for Patreon members. and you can message me directly if you have any questions. I will be answering them rather timely. So I'll put the link up on the chat here. If you're interested, you can take a look. And for you snow removal guys, it might prove useful. So take a gander. Okay. So there's the link, and hope you check it out.
Up there.
Yeah, up there. Yeah. Meanwhile, Mr. Rao, you are doing.
I'm doing the Lower Hudson Valley for FiOS 1 News, and you are doing. What are you doing again? Oh.
Long Island, New Jersey, and then going home.
Whatever. And then in the morning it'll be Brian Fitzgerald and Jeff Banson in the morning hours, and midday will be Addison Green and Brittany Borer.
And then you and I will be back tomorrow night.
By the way, I started a real controversy.
A controversy. Go on.
On Jeff Banson, who was a Yankee fan, was asking the question about what Met fans felt about David Wright, who's going to play his final game in his career on the 29th of September. A lot of people came back and said, oh, we love David Wright. And I came back with a comment that I said he was a very good ball player, but he wasn't a superstar. I really wasn't so enamored with him. And boy, I want to tell you, and this was on Jeff's Facebook page. Mm-hmm. I got hammered from every different direction by Met fans.
See, I stay away from those controversies, and I'm just going to mention one thing that my daughter messaged me about this morning, because we are both huge. She and I are both huge fans of the Crown, the series. We watch it on Netflix. I believe it's an Amazon series, and it's great. And Claire Foy, who plays Queen Elizabeth, won the Emmy for Best Actress, and now she's giving up her role because they're going to jump 20 years. And I think Olivia Colman, who was on Broadchurch, which was another series that I was watching and I really liked it. I don't watch a lot of television, but I loved those two, particularly The Crown. So if you are, if you're like a history, kind of a history buff, and they, a little bit of artistic license that they take, but not really a whole lot apparently, and you haven't watched The Crown, watch The Crown. It's really, really good, and you can catch up on the first couple of seasons before they go to the next one. And Broadchurch was also very, very good. I really enjoyed that.
And congratulations, Henry Winkler, for your first Emmy in 43 years.
Yes. That was Claire Foy, by the way, who played Elizabeth in The Crown. Okay, so enough of that. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day, and ciao.
Au reservoir.